Hello, everyone. This is Brian Frabel, Vice President of Marketing at Velo. Thank you for attending the webinar on the sales tech stack. In the next 30 minutes, we're going to first I'll lay out a scope for you because this is a very big topic and we could probably spend 8 hours today talking about it. We'll go through a basic framework. If you attended the webinar we did about 3 to 4 weeks ago, same framework. We're going to build upon that. And then finally, we're going to spend most of the time, but we're going to move through it quickly, is the business challenge questions to ask yourself as you're building the sales tech stack. And you'll see as I go through this, that really is the key message out of this, is approach the sales tech stack and building your sales tech stack, not from a technology point of view or not from a category that the industry or analysts name it, but from a business challenge. What are you trying to solve? Ask yourself that first before you actually get into the actual work. So in terms of the scope of what we're going to cover, the focus here is on the act of selling and improving sales performance. So as a result, I have not included things like customer retention and customer service in here, although they are close cousins to the sales tech stack, and actually some of these tools can even be used for those purposes. I'm not covering the MarTech stack, which has exploded in recent years, and those are really all the technologies to help marketers manage and more effectively reach customers or prospective customers. And then CRM and marketing automation are obviously critical to the sales tech stack, but those two markets are relatively matured, and there's plenty of information out there, somewhat consolidated as well. So what I'm really talking about is all those other technologies that sit around and oftentimes link into the CRM and marketing automation. And then finally, we're going to lay out a framework and a blueprint, which you can hopefully take away and use to plan your own sales tech stack. This was not an effort to try to do an exhaustive list of logos, and I'm sure there are some out there, and there will be more. But I think it's more useful to give you something you can use. A pretty picture doesn't really tell you what to do next. So before we jump in, the question to ask yourself is, are you ready? And we'll go back to the MarTech stack. From 2011, 150 companies to over 4,000 in 5 years. So you can now see sophisticated marketing departments actually hiring people that are data scientists because there's so much data and so much information being generated. You could argue the sales tech stack may not be at the same level of maturity as the MarTech stack, but it sure isn't far behind. And there's no doubt about it that those that adopt it and embrace the technology are more likely to come out ahead. You can see some of the statistics that I have over there that is already showing that adopters of technology and using technology to your advantage is helping companies get ahead. So if you aren't thinking about it, you should be thinking about it. My guess is you are, because you're here at this webinar, but there's no doubt about it that the sales tech capabilities and products that are available will just continue to grow in the coming years. So 6 simple steps to implementing your sales tech stack, and it doesn't look like it's rocket science, and it's not, but I can't tell you how many people we talk to who begin at phase 4, evaluation. Oh, I'm just looking to see what's out there. And the danger of doing that and talking to vendors and looking at the technology first before you decide what you're trying to accomplish with it is one, may get lured down a path that doesn't solve your entire problem, or 2, you buy a technology, it sounds great, it has all these great bells and whistles, and then you implement it, and then you realize, geez, we didn't really need all of that. What we really needed is something else. So I laid this out because I think it's important, and too many people don't take the first 3 steps seriously, and that is define your business problem. What are you trying to do? Do you have a pipeline velocity problem? Do you have a problem where you don't have enough leads? Are you stalling when you get to the proposal quote pricing stage? Decide what your problems are. Then you got to align your key stakeholders, because as you implement some of these technologies, you will find that you're going to have multiple stakeholders involved. If your job title has to do something with sales enablement, you know this all too well, that oftentimes your job is to make sure sales and marketing are in lockstep and aligned. And many of these technologies won't succeed if you're not aligned from the beginning. If you have marketing gung-ho, but sales says, no thanks, and they don't use it, you're not going to get the value out of it. So aligning your key stakeholders before you go into evaluation phase is really important. And decide who's going to be on that evaluation team. It probably isn't just one group. Chances are we all have a ton of problems that we want to solve, and we want to be more efficient across everything that has to do with our sales process, but that's just not a reality that you can solve everything at once. So what you need to do is prioritize, and what are your must-haves. And you're going to find that some vendors have point solutions that will solve a single problem. Some will solve multiple problems. And so as you set your priority, that will determine whether you need a point solution or someone that has a broader solution, or maybe it's multiple vendors that you're going to piece together. Then you can go into the evaluation stage and start looking at technologies, getting the demos, talking to the vendors. But it doesn't stop there. So after you sign the purchase order, you still have to deploy it. And we're not going to cover this in too much detail, but I think we'll do an upcoming webinar on this. It's really important you have a plan to deploy, kick it off in style, treat it as kind of like you would an external product launch, get people excited about using it. Most technology requires some level of behavior change, and if people aren't excited about it, they're probably not going to change their behavior. And then there's an ongoing promotion after it. You have launch day, and you don't just stop and walk away and say, okay, it's done. I can tell you, working with many clients as well as colleagues throughout the industry and our partners and even our competition, ongoing promotion and engagement with the tool is the key to success. So as I said, the framework I'm going to cover is really going to help you with those first four. I think we'll come back at a later date and talk about deployment and promotion. So if you attended the webinar we did 3 to 4 weeks ago, we laid out this simple framework to think about the sales tech stack. And rather taking it from an analyst or industry point of view, where you have categories of technologies, we looked at it from how you approach sales from a day-to-day basis. So one, there's the sales process. From the beginning of who do I contact, nurturing them all the way through the sales process, and then finally getting some sort of order from them. In conjunction with that, there's a focus on people development within sales organizations. How do I train and coach my organization? There's all sorts of administrative type supports, forecasting, territory management, quota. And then there's also business intelligence and analytics tools, which aren't necessarily dedicated to marketing or sales. They can be used for many parts around the organization. But as you implement tools and you start to gather data, making sense of that data is a key piece. So if we look at this in a little bit more detail on the sales process, and you really start at the beginning, the first part is gathering information. So I need contact information. Maybe I have a person's name and title and company, but I don't have email, phone. Or I want to know all of the IT decision makers at Fortune 500 companies. Where do I get that information? Because that's my target market. So there's a whole set of tools that are focused on this, is getting information, augmenting information you already have. Then there's, okay, I have the information, I have their contact information. Who do I contact? Who do I contact first? Who is going to be the most likely to turn into an opportunity and then ultimately a sale? Because chances are I have too many people to contact and I want to prioritize my time. Which accounts should I contact? Which accounts are the most ripe for an opportunity? Who within that account should I contact? If in a business like ours, we often have a buyer's family that is made up of various people within sales and marketing. Maybe I only have one person, a salesperson. How do I also engage that marketing person? How do I manage my pipeline? Where should I spend my time? Should I spend more time prospecting? Should I spend more time opportunities? And then also just
account planning. Do I have opportunities to expand and grow an account versus trying to develop new business? So this is another category where there's a whole set of technology focused on solving these problems. Then there's the how you contact. So we decided we have the contact information. We've prioritized who I should contact. Multiple ways to do it. There's phone dialers. There's email automation tools that will tell you best time. They'll give sales reps reminders on follow-up. There's social tools. And then there's just simple things like scheduling meetings and online meeting tools. So again, a whole set of technologies around that. Now I got my prospect on the line. What do? What content do I share with that person? How do I share it with them? What do I say? And this is probably one of the more important things is you can get anybody on the phone, but then making the sale and delivering value and selling your unique value and differentiation in a compelling way repeatedly across a broad sales force is not an easy task. And so having reps know what to say, what to share, and at what point is really important. And then finally you got someone that's interested. Okay, so now what do? We have a proposal, we have a quote, we have to get pricing, we have to get the deal signed as quickly as possible. And of course, if it's like today, a day before the end of the quarter, you want to hit your quarterly goals. So how do you do that fast and effectively? So that kind of takes you from contacting a person all the way to closing a sale. And within each of these categories, there's a variety of different technologies involved. But then there's also things that aren't necessarily tied to the sales process, but are still important. In people development, I wanted to get someone onboarded and up to speed and hitting quota as quickly and efficiently as possible. And then there's also ongoing training. I have product launches all the time. How do I make sure that even my most seasoned reps know what to say and how to sell value, and when they're selling my latest and greatest and not continually selling my legacy? And then there's ongoing coaching. We all need coaching. If you have a dispersed sales force, how do I virtually coach so I can do it on a regular basis as opposed to once a quarter when I see my employees face to face? On the administrative support side, there's tools for forecasting, sales, quota management, compensation and incentives, territory management, how should I break up my territories, how many reps should I have per territory. So all critical things to creating an efficient, high-performing sales force is not necessarily tied to the sales process. And then as I mentioned earlier, business intelligence and analytics. Many of the tools in the categories above are going to generate a ton of data. How do I draw insights out of that? I mean, it's one thing to look at pretty charts and graphs, but where are the insights that cause me to change or do something differently? And that's really what you're trying to get out of these tools. And as I said, they're not necessarily tied to the sales tech stack. They can be used for any data source, but they're critical. And as I mentioned in the beginning, you've already seen this with marketing, where there are companies now hiring marketing data scientists because so much of the MarTech stack is generating data, and you need people to be able to draw the insights. Otherwise, why did you do it in the first place? Okay, so we're going to tackle these each one by one. What I'm going to do is offer you a couple questions to ask yourself, and ask yourself these questions and say, are these my top challenges? And if they are, then you might want to focus and do a little deeper dive. I'll offer a couple logos down at the bottom for each of these categories, just to give you a flavor of some of the companies. This is by no means an exhaustive list. And I think we'll be doing a brief in the next month or so that will dive in a little bit deeper and maybe give you a few more names that, to help you, because it can be a daunting task. So when we talk about the beginning, gathering information, I have a name at a company, or I want all IT decision makers at Fortune 500. Well, okay, so where do I start? And so the question to ask yourself is, is your challenge, do you have enough prospects? Do you know who to contact? Do you have the contact information? Do you have up-to-date information? Maybe you want the buyer's family tree. So I know who the VP of sales is, but I know when I'm selling my product, I got to get to VP of sales enablement and VP of marketing as well. Who are those people, and how do I get in contact with them? And so Zoom and Discover are two example companies in this space. When we talk then about prioritizing who to contact and how you contact them, the business challenges you're really trying to solve here is, how do I increase my lead to opportunity conversion? And so a lot of that has to do with, do I have the right leads? Are my leads prioritized properly? Were they scored properly? And there's a lot of exciting technologies in this space that are using predictive technologies to help you make that call, because oftentimes you'll get a lead, they'll be scored through marketing automation, and you can look at two leads with the exact same lead score, but you will see vastly different conversion rates from lead to opportunity. And oftentimes a simple lead score in marketing automation isn't enough information to predict whether that lead is actually going to turn into business. And with some of the tools now in the sales tech stack, I think this is one of the more exciting spaces. They're helping you prioritize and get beyond just a simple lead score and actually into predictive behaviors based on other deals that have gone through your pipeline. There's timing. There is a good time to call people. Sometimes they're better than others. There's also regular cadence. So there's tools that will remind your sales reps. So they're contacting people on a regular cadence that is optimal. And then just in general, a lot of these tools will help you get more efficient in your communication as well. You can see the list of companies there. There's quite a few in this space, and you could argue you can almost break up these couple categories here into almost 10 to 12 by themselves. Then we have what do you do to sell? And this is, okay, so what do I share? Do I share content? What do I say alongside the content? And obviously that's going to differ. If I'm prospecting, my content, my message is probably very different than if I'm in my 4th or 5th meeting and we're getting closer to the proposal stage. And so you want your sales reps to be armed with the right content and the right message based on where the opportunity sits in the pipeline. And so, big business challenges here that we hear often is, I have too much content. My sales reps can't find the content. 75% of my content isn't used. I don't know if my sales reps are actually using the right content and the latest. Or, hey, my reps are using the content, but I have no confidence that they're actually positioning and messaging our product offering correctly. And so here you see a variety of companies that address that. So you have your great conversation, you're ready to close, and then, let's say you're like today and we're at the end of the quarter and I want this deal to close by September 30th. So how do I quickly get from the time I quoted to actually cash in hand as quickly as possible? I have a complex product line. How do I make sure that the proposals and the quotes that my reps are sending out are maximizing our revenue? They're doing it correctly, efficiently, and then, of course, like I said, I want something signed by 11:59 p.m. on September 30th to close the quarter. How can we efficiently do that and get the contract signed? So there's a variety of tools here down at the bottom that help you with that. Okay. Oops. And then we have the support functions that I had down on the bottom of the original framework. And first is people development. And there, we talk to a lot of companies. I think most companies have a fair amount of turnover in sales, and so onboarding is an ongoing challenge and problem, because you don't want a rep to be on board for 9 months and then you find out they're not going to cut it, and then you have to start all over again. So you want a fast, efficient process to get people up to speed as quickly as possible, and if for some reason they're not going to cut it, you want to know that so you can replace them with someone that will. And then there's ongoing training, ongoing product launches, and this is another challenge, especially if you have a diverse or dispersed sales force. How do I make sure, I had a 1-hour webinar training on our new product launch, but how do I know that my reps are actually remembered everything and can articulate the new product differentiation or prepared to sell it? So there are a lot of tools here that aren't just about the one-time training, but the ongoing reinforcement, memory boost type of tools and activities that are actually been shown to increase knowledge retention and then ultimately produce better sellers. The other support function we talked about was some of these administrative supports, and I think most companies want more accurate forecasts for a lot of reasons. If you're a public company, forecasting is important when you're reporting out quarterly to Wall Street, but just in terms of how you manage your costs, expenses, hiring, etc. How do you manage quota if you have a complex product line? Obviously, tools can help you. If you have one product line, that may not be a big a deal for you. There are tools that will predict the right way to split a territory, how many resources to put within a territory, et cetera, and then tools to manage compensation and incentives. As again, if you have a complex, diverse sales force, that can get pretty challenging. And then last but not least are the tools that can take all of the data that's going to produce from the tools and the categories we just talked about. And really, it's with one singular focus in my mind is that, too many organizations create pretty charts and graphs, but they don't draw insights out of those charts and graphs. And I think that's really what these tools are developed to help you do. So you can change behavior, you can change business process and get more efficient. And then, of course, we all have the internal politics that one GM wants the data sliced and diced this way, another GM wants the data sliced and diced this way. All of the tools and vendors that I've shown you, most of them have some level of native reporting in their software tool, but you'll find that every organization and then people within organizations have a slightly different way they want data, and no vendor can do the number of reports that their client base will want. And so that's where these tools that I have here on the screen come in and are really helpful, because that way you can customize it to whatever way your organization wants to see it. So, like I said, that was a quick run through of a framework. We're going to write a more detailed brief to give you a lot more information. It'll be more like a reference document. We'll make these slides available as well. But a parting thought for you is back to what I said in the beginning. Make sure that you approach your sales tech stack by solving a business problem. If you limit yourselves to industry categories or the way analysts categorize it, you might get more than you wanted, or you might get less than you wanted. And so you'll find that certain vendors do one thing really well, other vendors cover multiple pieces of the sales tech stack. It's very hard to put a vendor into only one category when you break it up, and they'll attack the problem differently. So one vendor may suit you really well, where someone else, another vendor is a better fit. And so, my guidance here is, rather than saying I need a learning management system, I need an enterprise content management system. What are you trying to solve? I need to be better at onboarding. I don't even have an onboarding program. I need a tool to help me set up an onboarding program. That will allow you to talk to the vendors with specific needs, as opposed to, okay, hey vendor, what can you do? And then you're going to end up trying to fit a square peg in the round hole. And then pull your stakeholders in. With planning, you'll have that nice, neat shoe shelf there on the right. Without planning, your sales tech stack is likely to look like that pile of shoes on the left, and be probably a complete disaster, and you'll probably struggle with engagement of your sales reps as well. So with that, I want to thank you for attending. We will send out the slides. We will also have a link to replay of the webcast. website there, as well as if you are going to be at Dreamforce next week, we will be at the Sales Enablement Soiree, which is free and open. It's a who's who of thought leaders on Thursday next week, October 6th. You can register at www.salesenablementsoiree.com. It's all day, so it's kind of an open house type style. Come and go as you like, learn and network with a little bit of food and drink mixed in there. And then we'll also be at Corporate Executive Board the third week in October. Stop by, we have a booth there. The dates of that show are in Las Vegas on October 18th to the 20th. So with that, I want to again thank you, and hopefully this was helpful, and look for some follow-up materials in the coming days.